What's up, Goth Gamer Nation gang? You heard it right. New microphone, higher fidelity audio, just for your listening pleasure. I'm gonna give you a taste of it in this new video about a video game that I played called S.T.A.L.K.E.R.
S.T.A.L.K.E.R, Shadow of Chernobyl, is a first-person shooter, survival horror game developed by Ukrainian studio GSC Game World and published by THQ in 2007 for PC. The release of the first S.T.A.L.K.E.R game was preceded by an arduous and tumultuous even development cycle, where at multiple points it languished in production hell as the ambitious ideas the game was sold on proved harder and harder to bring to fruition. It began life in 2001 as S.T.A.L.K.E.R Oblivion Lost, a game loosely based on a film, loosely based on a book, but all three co-opting this shared language and imagery, a bleak future where morally ambiguous adventurers and trespassers called stalkers explore and plunder the Zone, a hazardous, mysterious area where the laws of physics and reality are broken, and there are many who wish to profit from it or take control of it, either for scientific and military research or for the valuable artifacts found within. Oblivion Lost sought to marry the film's depiction of the Zone with Chernobyl's real-life nuclear disaster in 1986, a horrific reactor explosion that showered Ukraine, Russia, and Belarus with more radiation than an atomic bomb. The physical, emotional, and political fallout of this event that left tens of thousands either dead or cancer-ridden is still being felt, and in an oddly poetic turn, a subculture was born a generation later of real stalkers. Well, more accurately, adventurous and irresponsible adolescents who sneak into Chernobyl's exclusion zone, in part to plunder radioactive contraband, but also just because it's freaking epic.
Here's the Chernobyl water.
In any case, a very appropriate union of ideas and the promise of a game with these themes that also took gameplay inspiration from immersive sims like Deus Ex and System Shock was exciting. The game already seemed to have a rabid cult following, and it was still mostly an idea. But as years passed and release windows were passed, it became clear that, look, games are hard to make, especially after you publicly say, "We're making the best video game you ever freaking dreamed of, guys. Like, you know all the things that are good? Well, this game's gonna have all of them. Plus, we're gonna invent new technologies that y'all motherfuckers ain't even heard of. And it's gonna be like real life, except less depressing. It's gonna be so cool. Just give us 3 years, and we're gonna make gaming history." Alright, thank you. See you guys at the party. Guys, how the fuck do we make a video game? In 2003, THQ obviously was wondering why these guys don't have anything that looks like a freaking game yet, so to expedite the development, they sent over a guy named Dean Sharp to crack the whip on GSC. During this period, a build of the game had leaked, which even in pre-alpha was impressive and went over so well that many believed it to be a calculated PR move. A similar build would be shown off a while later in this tech demo, giving us a look at the impressive physics, lighting, and textures. We also see some of the driving and some of the wildlife. It was noticeably less futuristic than the previous glimpse, and the busy sci-fi super soldier UI was gone, which was for the best. It looked like, despite being late, the project was going to make good on a lot of the hype, with a new tentative release date of when it's done. This was also one of the last promos to sport the name Oblivion Lost. This was mostly because Chernobyl was becoming a larger influence on the game's plot and atmosphere. Little changes like this spurred a lot of contempt in the community that followed the game's development, and there would be a lot of changes beginning with Dean Sharp's involvement in the project. When they missed a second and third release window, rumors of cut content, layoffs, and publisher meddling had many followers feeling bitter and as though they had been lied to. Around 2006, the general consensus was that the game was vaporware, likened to Duke Nukem Forever, which at the time was not yet finished, and would also be far from the worst or least finished thing Gearbox put their name on. Belief in S.T.A.L.K.E.R was waning, not only from fans but from the dev team, and Sharp began receiving death threats from irate gamers, and general disdain from actual GSC staff for his involvement. The frustration was understandable, but you know, it's either this or you don't get a game.
You want a video game? You want that? Yeah?
Some of the team couldn't get on board with the changes and cuts and left to make their own game, called Zenus. Well, Boiling Point in the US, because, I mean, Zenus is a bad name. That's really all I can say about that. Rhymes with another word, a dirty word that I don't like to say. Jesus. So with S.T.A.L.K.E.R finished but unpublished, tensions in the office reached a zenith as a handful of employees felt GSC founder Sergei Grigorovich prioritized money instead of his team, claiming that their first game, Cossacks, made near $100 million, and they didn't see from that. In an interview with the project lead on Shadow of Chernobyl, Andrew Prokhorov, he remarked that despite GSC employing, at its height, 140 people, in the parking lot there were only 4 cars. 3 of them belonged to Grigorovich. A BMW, a Porsche, and a Ferrari with plates that read S.T.A.L.K.E.R. Anyway, a dispute about wages after S.T.A.L.K.E.'s completion led to Prokhorov and a few others leaving GSC to form 4A, which would put out their own successful series of games set in an Eastern European apocalypse based on a book. These Ukrainians, they know what they like. They like them's irradiated Soviet hellscape. Dean Sharp would eventually become CEO of 4A, so I guess it wasn't all bad blood. Maybe there was some mad love. Short version, there is no reason this game should have been finished with the ungodly amount of difficulties it had, but after drastically scaling back GSC's ambitions and cutting out a decent amount of the game's content, most notably scaling back the complexity of the game's proposed A-Life AI, where NPCs would have randomly generated lives, essentially. Other cuts included numerous areas of the map, a couple of factions, drivable vehicles, and the ability to purchase fuel for them are out, several weapons, enemies, and side quests. But despite that, Shadow of Chernobyl was released, and it was not poorly received either. It sold well enough to warrant a prequel and a sequel, but didn't catch on nearly as well outside of Europe, especially in the US, at least according to a GSC mouthpiece, who also adds, "It seems that to appeal to North America, you need really flashy, bright games, and you can see that every Eastern European game is very dark. Bro, we made Morrowind, Deus Ex, Thief, and Dungeon Keeper 2014. It doesn't get darker and more depressing than that. Can you imagine how emotionally affected I'd be if I had to input my credit card information to buy energy gems just to get trampled by mutant pigs that spawned behind me?" Anywho, I understand that people who like S.T.A.L.K.E.R really like S.T.A.L.K.E.R. It's one of those games you form an intimate, personal experience with, and because of this, and the sheer number of standalone mods and alpha builds and recreations of the game, everyone has this particular way they like to play this game. Whether it's Anomaly, Dead Air, Lost Alpha, Oblivion Lost Remake, Call of Chernobyl, you could go out to your local Soviet-era mound of rubble and squat by a trash can fire, inhaling paint. Everybody has their own optimal S.T.A.L.K.E.R experience, is what I'm saying. But I'm not aiming to share my thoughts on what S.T.A.L.K.E.R could have been. If it had more time, if it had more competent leadership, I'm talking about the base game here, the S.T.A.L.K.E.R that we got. The only supplement to the vanilla game I will partake in, at the behest of some nice S.T.A.L.K.E.R experts, is a community bug fix called Zone Reclamation Project, which did its darndest, but, you know. S.T.A.L.K.E.R, Shadow of Chernobyl, takes much of its skeleton from the S.T.A.L.K.E.R film and the book Roadside Picnic, shifting the location to a near-future Ukraine, interpreting this tense, cerebral adventure as an alternative history, action-horror experience, and makes S.T.A.L.K.E.R an acronym to avoid paying anyone that actually came up with these ideas. But, to GSC's credit, they do make this premise their own, and competently build a world and a lore out of these influences, their own additions, and out of Eastern European history. So, in this variation of the S.T.A.L.K.E.R mythos, history is played out much the same until 2006, when there is a second explosion inside of Chernobyl, which scatters pockets of invisible energy throughout the exclusion zone. Many of the scientists and authorities investigating the incident either die or disappear. The government cordons off the area, but over time the zone and its dangers seem to spread. 2 years later, the mysteries and myths of the zone begin to attract a growing number of adventurer, survivalist types who sneak into the zone and return with artifacts, strange organic objects that the zone has created and imbued with anomalous properties. These radiated souvenirs bring in a lot of money, and soon enough, a little black market operation is set up where stalkers brave the zone and hawk these artifacts to scientists, corporations, and any other interested parties. Shadow of Chernobyl opens on just such a stalker, except he's in the back of a truck full of dead bodies, which gets struck by lightning, exploding into a ball of fire. That's him, probably. So he's dead, right?
No.
He just wakes up the next day, seemingly the only survivor, and with no memory of who he is or how he wound up on that truck. A passing stalker sees our protagonist's misfortune, like most people in the zone do, as dollar signs, baby! So he picks him up and takes him to a trader named Sidorovich, who plans to fix him up and exploit him for cheap labor. The only clues to our protagonist's identity is a tattoo bearing the word stalker and a to-do list with one intense-sounding task. They decide to call this guy Marked One, as that is the only discernible characteristic to him. It was either Marked One or Unwrapped Mummy. So after Marked One proves he's resourceful enough, Sidorovich lets him in on a mutually beneficial plan. He's caught wind that a stalker named S.T.A.L.K.E.R was somehow able to travel north into the center of the zone, meaning if we find S.T.A.L.K.E.R, Marked One gets to, I guess, kill him, because that's clearly what he planned to do, but also the traders get a path into the zone's center, which is no doubt brimming with artifacts and all kinds of gear and sweet loot. The main problem is they're not sure how he pulled it off in the first place. Aside from having to overcome every obstacle that the zone could throw at you, there's also the matter of the Brain Scorcher, a psychological minefield. Seemingly anyone who approaches this area is turned into a mindless, shambling ghoul, but curiously enough, their browser speed is off the fucking chart. This may be GSC's take on the meat grinder concept from Stalker and Roadside Picnic, but it's also cleverly integrated into an existing Ukrainian conspiracy theory surrounding the Duga-1 radar array, nicknamed the Russian Woodpecker, which is a big, ominous as fuck wall of metal antennas, whose purpose as a missile defense system was not made public until the fall of the Soviet Union. But left to speculate, the most prominent theories were that it was either used to premiere a mediocre experimental noise album, or it was a covert psychoactive military experiment meant to, you know, make you really like Ukraine. In any case, you'd have to find some method of withstanding the Brain Scorcher enough to get close and destroy it, while also having to deal with a militant group of religious zealots called Monolith. Little is known about this group, especially after much of the content involving them was cut from the game. Nonetheless, another layer of defense to worry about. Heavily armed with advanced weaponry and faith in what they think is a sentient alien monolith that lives in the zone's center. Finding S.T.A.L.K.E.R, your memory, and unraveling the zone's secrets are the main focus of the plot, but not the only thing going on. You also have the option of aiding some of the Stalker factions. The majority of Stalkers you come across are lone wolves like you, but some have chosen to band together following different ideologies. Aside from that, you can also just pick up odd jobs from traders and fellow Stalkers. Before I describe and spoil any more of Stalker's plot, I'd like to say that there is a confidence and creativity to Stalker's world that is surprising considering how much of a mess its development was. What could have easily been a sloppy cut and paste job is actually a world that can occasionally feel alive. In between times, it feels sloppily cut and pasted. It feels alive in a sickly, tired sort of way. Its ragged breathing felt throughout its bleak landscape of crumbling buildings, overturned cars, and irradiated fields of dead undergrowth. It presents an oppressive Soviet atmosphere so well realized that nothing in its narrative can really measure up to it. Despite there being 3 games in this franchise so far, they really waste no time in telling you this plot, and in comparison to its setting, it's not the greatest story. My moment-to-moment experiences, exploring, and following my own path through the zone is in itself a great storytelling experience. Just walking from one area to another is filled with tension.
Well, guess I best skedaddle.
But it's this very specific kind of tension, a sense of uncertainty and foreboding one could easily just describe as Ukrainian. Stalker gave me one of the truest senses of adventure I've had ever. dozens of little micro moments that I feel like I'm gonna remember and treasure in a way. Oh, shit. Shadow of Chernobyl doesn't have a whole lot of unanswered questions about big picture stuff, so if you're intrigued by the mysteries at play, what is the Zone? Who is S.T.A.L.K.E.R? Who is the Marked One? You're gonna find those things out in rapid succession, and I'm gonna say it, so feel free to skip this section if you'd like to experience that for yourself. And I do recommend that. If, like me, you enjoy big, ambitious, lovable piles of jank, then it doesn't get much better than this. How have you been, by the way? I don't have anything to talk about really while we wait for you to make your decision here. Oh yeah, there was this article that a studio called Ziggurat purchased the rights to Blood Rain and some other Majesco properties that nobody cares about. But I'm very excited that at least somebody owns it again and is doing something with it, even if it's just fixing up the PC version. Because it was a real shame that it was plagued with so many issues. I'm not going to get overly excited about the prospect of a new Blood Rain game because, you know, they didn't outright say that's what they're doing, and even if they did, like, then I gotta worry about somebody making a new Blood Rain game, which is more stressful than exciting, I feel. Because I like Blood Rain, and I wanted to have a good game. This studio that until now has only purchased the rights to things and put them on Steam doesn't really fill me with confidence, but, you know. Blood Rain's cool. I like Blood Rain. I should probably write more interesting things to say during this segment. There's a good while where you're like, you know, find the info that leads to the info that leads to the info. But after a bit of that, we wind up in an underground lab where we learn that the Brain Scorcher is a man-made device, and there is another lab called Lab X16 where it may have been built. So conceivably, if we found the means to protect our brains and get close enough to it, we could just switch that fucker off, go back to 4G. So we fight our way through a bunch of really spooky stuff that's scared the bejeepers out of me. And once we turn off the Brain Scorcher, we get this cutscene. There's supposed to be a cutscene here. Hang on, that's that was supposed to happen. Where we see S.T.A.L.K.E.R at the Chernobyl power plant gunning down an endless wave of rats. His face is still a mystery though, so another trader named Barkeep sends us out to find an ecologist named S.T.A.L.K.E.R, who has been experimenting with psi armor, specifically to get into this lab that he already knew about. Seems weird that we didn't go to the ecologists first. We're trying to figure out how to get past a threat the Zone has produced. I figured we'd ask the people who have devoted themselves to understanding the properties of the Zone. Sakharov and another scientist named Kruglov almost have a working prototype of their psi armor, but they need your help in getting some measurements of something or other. I don't know. You're gonna be killing zombies, so you don't gotta focus on whatever bullshit they're doing.
So let's get these measurements, huh? Kruglov? Buddy?
So you get the measurements. Sakharov does something off in the distance, just dicks around for a little bit, and boom! We get the psi armor. Around here is where you should probably pursue your leads to find S.T.A.L.K.E.R.'s associates. For a while we've been chasing rumors. I know a guy who knew a guy who one time met a guy who squatted at a campfire with a guy who knew a guy who knew S.T.A.L.K.E.'s dad. Eventually, we zero in on the hideout of a guy named Doc, who worked closely with S.T.A.L.K.E.R. And when we get there, Marked One unknowingly triggers an explosive trap that knocks him out. Doc appears and starts talking to him for a bit.
Look, S.T.A.L.K.E.R, we've got no time, so I need you to listen to me.
Why are you calling me that? That's the name of the man whom I'm out to kill for reasons. Have you confused me? This whole time, I've been S.T.A.L.K.E.R.'s dad? Marked One is S.T.A.L.K.E.R. Then why did he write such a grammatically strange suicide note? So before he lost his memory, S.T.A.L.K.E.R. and some other stalkers had worked out that the monolith that Monolith worships, they're not very creative. That monolith, fabled to be in the center of the Zone, is an illusion, a trap. For a long time, superstitious stalkers have thought that the monolith is a wish granter, that anyone who enters can come out wealthy or powerful, but Doc has confirmed that nobody who has found the monolith has ever returned, and the Zone seems to grow larger once they disappear. Doc is satisfied that he's brought you up to speed. They don't seem to have any other business to discuss, so he just leaves the story. Turning off the Brain Scorcher goes surprisingly well. After fighting through some waves of zombies, we get to, quite literally, a big old brain in a tube. Before they can head into the center, they learn of a second brain scorcher in Pripyat, which can be shut off, but by now everybody has caught on to what you've been up to. So when we turn it off and open the path into Pripyat, it's complete chaos, as the military, mercenaries, duty, freedom, and lone wolf stalkers all rush into the area to claim it. If we didn't go through the trouble of finding Doc and the decoder to open this secret room, then we'd be foolishly walking into a trap, where we could get one of a handful of false endings, where S.T.A.L.K.E.R asks the monolith for something absurd and is given a dark monkey's paw result. One of the more interesting being him asking for the zone to disappear and then promptly going blind. I guess it's gone, in that I can't see the goddamn thing now, but I feel like you knew what I was asking for. If we are able to enter the lab beneath it, we come to a holographic terminal, where pretty much every conceivable question you could have about this game is answered by a green floating scientist man. So, after the original Chernobyl disaster, the Ukrainian government thought it would be a super cool idea to use the exclusion zone for what else? Mind experiments. We're talking ESP, frickin' mind reading shit, the works, all the best stuff you'd want to do with your brain. This included combining the consciousnesses of 7 scientists into a single hive mind called C consciousness. Presumably when the Soviet Union fell, they either pulled the plug on this operation or forgot about it. The creation of the zone occurred when C consciousness attempted to bring about world peace in an act of global mind control by making small adjustments to a sphere of information that exists around the world created by all beings with consciousness called the noosphere. C consciousness damaged this sphere, and the zone is the physical manifestation of that. A terror in reality, so to speak. While working to prevent the zone from spreading further, they created the Wish Granter monolith to lure stalkers in, brainwash them, and use them to keep C consciousness and their mistakes a secret, marking them with a stalker tattoo. Wait, but that's like... No. My symbol of individuality and rebellion was proof that I'm just as brainwashed as the rest of this wretched world? S.T.A.L.K.E.R is, as the hologram puts it, a bolt that fell from the machine. When he and 2 other stalkers attempted to reach the monolith, the other 2 were killed, but S.T.A.L.K.E.R activated and was brainwashed by the Brain Scorcher, which programmed him with the task, kill S.T.A.L.K.E.R. But since they wiped his memory, he doesn't know that it's essentially told him to kill himself, and then dumped him in a truck to go find himself. All out of exposition, S.T.A.L.K.E.R is offered the chance to join C consciousness and keep the whole zone cycle the way it's been going. Accepting this leads to another false ending where you get inside a tube and are never seen again. Doc is left pondering what that crazy goofball's fate was. I bet he's probably getting mixed up in all kinds of wacky adventures right now. To be young. Thing is, we already know that whenever someone reaches the Wish Granter, the zone spreads further, so obviously something ain't right here. Rightfully telling this guy to fuck off causes him to teleport you outside, where you fight through pretty much everything Monolith can throw at you, as you're trying to make your way back to where C consciousness is held. Jumping from portal to portal, so pissed off at these eggheads for hanging up on him in person, S.T.A.L.K.E.R shoots all 7 of the scientists in their tubes, and then lays down in some grass, not sure if he's just saved the world or doomed it.
I guess I'll never know. But I made it. And I guess I should be thankful for that.
So I can't say enough good things about S.T.A.L.K.E.R's atmosphere and world, and about the way I felt taking part in it and exploring. And I think there are some interesting cerebral ideas that the main story plays with. The thing that bothers me is, after an hour or 2, I was in love with it. I was thinking, this is now one of my favorite games. And I'd still say that, because it's less like I think the story here is bad, and more that I'm frustrated that I can see the remains of its potential. It's different from feeling a certain story beat is boring or poorly written. It's just this knot in my stomach, like a car almost hit me on the road. Like, fuck, that could have been wild. There are very rarely cutscenes, so it's jarring when one comes up. There is rarely radio dialogue, so it's jarring when that happens. There's just a lot of inconsistency. Even in the main story, you never really get characters to hang on to and care about. It's easy to get caught up in the action or exploration and forget that there is story significance to why you're here. Also, NPCs are sort of set up to be more interesting and talkative, but they usually only say the same selection of 2 canned responses. Toucan? That's a bird! There are typos and odd translations. A lot of the side quests can provide tense gameplay experiences, but they have little to no story behind them besides go get the thing and I'll give you money or an artifact. I'm not sure what it is about S.T.A.L.K.E.R.'s story specifically that makes me conflicted about it. My current theory is that a lot of the story is just not presented in an interesting way. A lot of it is relegated to a briefing before a mission. Marked 1 is barely a character. He's just this guy. This facial expression is his character. I think a lot more could have been done to remind me that the story is important. Even the diary that he keeps is just a recounting of things that you just did and do nothing to reveal character. And when Marked 1 finds out who he is and what happened to him, he's no longer that person. Those memories and that identity is gone, so he's still this blank slate guy. To add on to that, it seems like kind of a waste that the mystery of the zone's creation is just told to you by a monotone info dump character. That could be the result of things being cut out and prioritizing the development of their game engine rather than its story, but it really feels like they were initially taking their time and then they break into a sprint to get to the exposition. And though I do find some power and resonance in the game's canon ending, it feels like there are some steps missing in getting there. Like that could have meant more to me if I had an idea what Marked 1 wants. What kind of guy is he? Does he like old daughters or new daughters? That's a big part of what made the S.T.A.L.K.E.R. film great. I knew exactly which daughters they like. No, but the S.T.A.L.K.E.R. film is something of a character study. Shadow of Chernobyl is a game that's mostly about the zone, the thing I want to know the least about. I don't even think it's a bad idea what they go with. It is kind of interesting, and I can see them taking that to some wild places in other games. But it's unfortunate that the most memorable character is this guy. He's who we hear from the most. And it's gonna hit different now that I know exactly what it is after I found some guy, asked him, what's the zone? And he fucking tells me. But I guess there are still mysteries left to uncover. We still don't know what's going on in other countries. Do they have zones? Or women? Like, where'd they go? I feel like we should be more concerned about that, but like nobody's talking about it. Maybe that's what S.T.A.L.K.E.R. 2 is gonna be about. This game straddles the line between genres, acting mostly as a shooter and survival horror game, but with light RPG, immersive sim, and military sim elements. What will be immediately apparent to a first-time player, and what initially intimidated me about the game, is that 1, there are a lot of aspects of it that it either doesn't tell you or does tell you but in a way you'd easily miss. But mostly 2, it's pretty difficult.
These motherfuckers are in for a nasty surprise.
And I'm not the kind of person that's going to play a game on its hardest difficulty by default. In my head, it's like whatever you want to call normal is what the developer intended as the optimum way to experience the game, and that's what I'm going for. I mean, I loved Pathologic 2, I'm not averse to a difficult experience, but given the option, I want the option that's going to reflect the dev's intentions. This is an imaginary bullshit take that I've invented, but that's how I do things. Like, you don't have weird shit like that. Come on. Grow up. Get real. I'm sorry, that sounded aggressive. S.T.A.L.K.E.R. is going to be kind of brutal no matter which of these mysterious options you choose. So, you're never going to catch me saying this again, as I am very casual friendly, but you should probably play this on Master. It's one of many choices I made while playing this game that seemed like a bad idea, but actually improved my experience. I've tried the other difficulties, and Master is the only one that makes me feel good. It's somehow the most balanced. You can die in an instant, but using cover and aiming carefully makes firefights feel tense and satisfying. You're given more than enough healing items and medicine anyway. Oh, I should have mentioned, at this point, you may have noticed that I rarely, if ever, used iron sights, and that's mostly because I don't understand how they work. Firing from the hip, I see a reticle that lights up red when I'm aiming at an enemy, and I can approximate well enough when I'm going to be hitting. I just seemed to do a lot better and waste less ammo when I stopped trying to use iron sights. Just another one of those odd counterintuitive things. I realize I chose to use an example where I'm not aiming very carefully and I seem to be wasting a lot of ammo, but that's also because I'm using a pistol and they're kind of useless in the game, but you get a lot of ammo for them, so that's what's it's another quirk. It's a quirky game. This is an open world game, but it is separated by different maps, meaning you can technically go anywhere whenever you want. There will just be loading screens in between you getting there. The A-Life AI makes sure that the zone is perpetually full of mutants, bandits, military patrols, as well as environmental threats like areas with harmful radiation, and also anomalies, these weird, rippling, translucent orbs that will absorb you and set you on fire or melt you. Like the film, you can throw bolts to have a better idea of where they are, but I get the impression that they must have been almost entirely invisible in an earlier build or something, and then changed their minds, because it's a neat idea, but I never actually needed to use bolts to see them. The only times they ever killed me, I knew I was being sort of careless. Bolts do help in triggering shocking anomalies, so I could run past them while they reset. But it would be cool if they also did more. Maybe you could distract enemies with them. Of course, if I'm asking that, I'd like there to also be a functioning stealth mechanic. As is, all the enemies have telepathy and X-ray vision, so even though you get silenced weapons, you can drag corpses and have 2 meters for how much sound you're making and how visible you are. Stealth is not really a viable option in this game. I'm sure with mods or just being good you could pull this off, but that opportunity never presented itself to me. I was just shooting things. That's why I'd say it isn't quite an immersive sim, because ultimately you're out here to shoot people. There is certainly an immersive quality and little bits of realism, but you beat the zone by shooting it, which I mean far more literally than it sounds. Luckily, combat is often really tense and exciting, considering your enemies can die just as easily as you. And weapons can be unreliable depending on their condition, affecting accuracy and causing jams. If an enemy has stronger armor or an exoskeleton, you'll see most of your bullets hopelessly ricocheting off of them, which the physics of that happening are actually kind of cool. There's plenty of ammo to be found in crates and downed enemies, but rarely for the weapon you're holding. If you try hoarding different weapons and ammo types, you'll quickly become over-encumbered, which prevents you from sprinting, and eventually you won't even be able to move. To me, it seemed like a smart move to buy a quality gun from a trader and load up on ammo for it. But especially in later parts of the game, you're going to run out of ammo for it and need to rely on what enemies drop, meaning you'll probably end up just throwing it away and replacing it with a shitty secondhand AK, using bullets from a dead guy to kill the next guy to get his bullets to kill the next guy. I was often really stubborn about the carry weight, and for long stretches I was just like, fine, I don't need to run, I just won't run, I don't need it. But it feels so good to run and not become winded from trying to climb a ladder or jump on a box or something. Stupid anomaly. Enemy AI is smart, but in this suspicious, mystifying way. A little too smart if you ask me, not quite fair all the time. They perfectly flank you and can creep up behind you, and since they have laser eyes, like you can't use plants as cover, but they can. The plants don't hide you, so you can't see them, but they can see you. It's kind of shitty, but it makes even low-level enemies intimidating. Sometimes I just do something gutsy out of frustration. You just get lucky, I guess.
Just give me a second. Just give me a second. Showed you. Let's see what you got. What you got for me.
Fights in a corridor can be cheesed in amusing ways. I found you can essentially funnel them into a single opening and just continuously headshot them until there is just a comical pile of bodies. Sometimes searching a body will give you a map marker for their secret stash of items, which depending on where it is you might deem worthy enough to risk trying to find. The RPG elements come into play with your equipment and artifacts. As you progress, you'll find better weapons and armor and better artifacts. You can equip 5 of them, and each one will provide a stat boost and decrease, so it's a matter of balancing out the negative effects of one with the positive effects of another. You'll find these scattered around the zone, usually off in some random field or a tunnel. Always a good idea to pick them up though, because even the shitty ones sell for a lot. Also, can I just say, I don't know if this is controversial. I love a grid inventory. I just love looking at it. It's just the way inventory should be. I feel like more often than not, developers try to over-design and reinvent the inventory, but this is timeless. I got everything I need here. I can pull it up while I'm running. Best inventory. This makes the game a 10 out of 10 already. you can stop the review right here. One of the other things S.T.A.L.K.E.R is known for is bugs and crashes, which even with a mod in place to amend several of them, were still pretty common in my playthrough. I would fall through the environment and see people getting stuck in walls and shit, but I only got one legitimate crash. But when S.T.A.L.K.E.R crashes, it crashes hard. I feel like whatever iteration of this game you play, there is going to be something. But for me, it was never enough to deter me from continuing to play. The most bothersome reoccurring bug I came across was the result of quick saving around enemies. It makes sense that if you're, say, infiltrating a building and you take down 2 guys, but you want to hang back, maybe reload, put on a bandage, you quick save. Problem is, quick loading is not going to bring you to exactly this set of circumstances. When you press that button, something in the enemy programming is usually reset, and they immediately know where you are and are probably already shooting at you. Sometimes through corners or just teleporting much closer than they were before. Just another thing discouraging you from trying a stealthy approach. And save scumming, I suppose. Like most parts of S.T.A.L.K.E.R, the gameplay is deeply flawed, a little incomplete feeling, and sometimes just baffling, but ultimately an immense pleasure, and like nothing else. It's because of this that, when you get to that linear section at the end, I was becoming frustrated that I knew we were on rails to the end of the game, and I couldn't stop it. And I wanted more of the game. I immediately started playing Clear Sky afterwards, because I didn't want to leave. I wanted to shoot more dudes and explore more creepy tunnels and freeze in my fucking tracks whenever I heard a bloodsucker approaching. I did not expect S.T.A.L.K.E.R to also be one of the best horror experiences I've had, giving me at least 3 of the most intense scares I've experienced in a game. This motherfucker, he's around here somewhere, but I think if I play it cool and stick to the rooftops, I can get a drop on him. Could he? Fuck! Jesus. I didn't know they climbed the ladder like that. The fuck? Oh, well, maybe I shouldn't have been so quick to shoot him. For a game that is well over a decade old now, I was surprised by how well S.T.A.L.K.E.R holds up visually. A big part of what makes walking around the zone immersive and atmospheric is the care put into the environments and the sometimes downright beautiful lighting and weather effects. Sound is also very important in crafting this morose, oppressive landscape that feels like it's dying and trying to drag you down with it. On top of a really good ambient soundtrack that I re-listened to over and over while making this, as well as an equally good concept album based on the film, which you should also listen to if you're interested, there is always something haunting going on in the distance, be it a howling breeze or the crackling of distant gunfire. It never feels like you should stay in one place for very long. It's that feeling when you come home late and you're fumbling with your keys thinking, what if someone followed me? They probably did follow me. I just don't look like you're afraid or panicked. They can smell that. Why do I have so many keys? The tunnel and lab areas are terrifying to me. Like, I don't know what it is, man. I swear I've played all kinds of spooky games, okay? But I spent so much time in these areas just because I didn't want to go further into them. I'd essentially build the nerve to go into one room and then just corner myself like, oh, okay, this room's clear. We can reassess and make sure we got everything we need to continue. Make sure these radiation levels are okay. Yep, I'm all healed up. I don't know why I would even be concerned. I do have an automatic weapon that should be pretty devastating if you know. What the fuck is that? The soundtrack in these areas is my favorite. It's got this texture to it. It's like old dead machines that are still functioning through some ghostly memory of them. I'm just fascinated by all the little noise of familiar things, and how you often can't tell if it's machinery, or breathing, or static, or steam. It's industrial and suffocating, like my affection.
Entry is not necessary in order to hear what is being said within a room.
There's a lot of little satisfying UI sounds, like turning in a mission. Fuck yeah. That little noise carries so much validation in it. That makes it all worth it. I wish that could play when I just get out of bed in the morning. I also like this little beep whenever you're near another stalker. And is it weird to just kind of generally enjoy the sound of a Geiger counter. I don't know, I think it sounds really pleasant considering it only makes noise when you're close to a cancer elemental. There are certainly flaws to both sound and visuals though. Not that any of this really bothers me, but there is that early 2000s normal mapping that really dates the game. But I've always had a weird fondness for that look. Things like footsteps are kind of bad and repetitive. Much of the English voice work is it's pretty bad, and has spawned a great deal of memes as a result.
Get out of here, Stalker.
I said come in. Don't stand there.
You didn't tell me fuck off.
I like the design of the monsters, and there's a lot of texture and detail to them, like the snorks, a really fun, creepy design, but it's kind of silly that they make like a stock lion growl sound. Basic NPCs also have a lot of cool design and detail, but their animations are often really stiff and actual faces are kind of ghastly. So it sort of works out that more often than not they have their face covered by a gas mask or something. I mean, I find it kind of charming, but I couldn't say it's good. I don't know. I could think of other things to nitpick, but I was so charmed by this game that, like, that's all part of it, man. It's so good. The jank is like the vinyl warmth or the VHS tracking. It's the bad thing that I say is good because it makes me sound cultured. This game is way overrated in my opinion. It felt like a ripoff of Half-Life 2 in a Fallout 3 setting, but done very poorly. Both of those games are far better than this colossal waste of time. The graphics aren't anything spectacular. The dialogue and storyline are awful. They throw you into the fray with no tutorial at all. The shooting mechanics are unrealistic. When you shoot the enemy in the face 6 billion times and they don't die but they have one shot, one kill ability, it feels like dirty pool. Don't waste your money on this game. I'm just glad it came in a bundle so I didn't pay full price for it. I ask myself why this gets such high praise from the critics and even players. We need to set the bar higher, folks. I found this game got me frustrated at best, so if that's what you find fun, then have at it. It was fun. I will have at it. Would also like to add that it was in production before the release of either of those games you mentioned. You're allowed to think those games are better, unfortunately. Unfortunately, I can't do anything to correct that, but I think you were just having some troubles playing the game. You gotta shoot the dudes in the head. It doesn't really sound like you were successful doing that. See me doing it here? You can do it too. This is how it works. S.T.A.L.K.E.R Oblivion 1, well, it actually did. Elder Scrolls Oblivion was on the market a year before S.T.A.L.K.E.R. It sported the same open-ended world and adventure, much better graphics and facial animation, and for goodness sake, much fewer bugs. They did not have to issue a hotfix 10 days into the game release. For me, S.T.A.L.K.E.R is Elder Scrolls with bugs and a Kalashnikov. Too buggy? Too late. Buddy, I love Oblivion. I think it's an amazing game, but I'd wager more people are familiar with Oblivion as a buggy mess and for people's faces looking like moldy fruit than literally anything else. I'm honestly baffled by you using the phrase Elder Scrolls with bugs. I also would not say they were the same open-ended world and adventure. Like, you don't even believe that. You don't think these two games were attempting to do the same thing, right? You'd be a very silly person if you thought so. S.T.A.L.K.E.R wasn't too late to be Oblivion. It was right on time to be S.T.A.L.K.E.R. This game has nothing big to offer. If you want to throw your money out of the window, buy this thing. Play Fallout 3 if you want a game in this concept. I'm confused. Is Fallout 3 a bleak, punishing survival horror shooter in a post-Chernobyl Ukraine? No? Then shut up. This game is a prime example of one of the things wrong with gaming today. The players. This game is a broken, buggy, unintuitive product that feels like an alpha, yet it's widely loved and popular. I cannot wrap my head around this. How is a game that offers no explanation or even instructions possibly worth an 82 out of 100? Examples: was not aware that I started with a gun until accidentally pulling it out. Was not told how the inventory system worked. Not that it was complicated, but still unacceptable. Was not educated on the anomalies beyond that they exist. Was not properly informed how to handle radiation and bleeding. A tooltip that pops up for 3 seconds does not qualify for proper information. The list goes on, and I never even got out of the first loaded area. People complain about the decline in game quality over the years, yet they give S.T.A.L.K.E.R the highest praise. First of all, opening with a very hot take, What are you, some kind of game industry bootlicker? Believe it or not, there is a debate amongst gamers when it comes to things like tutorials. There are some developers that like to sort of tell you how to do things as they come up. There are some that give you a bit of a tutorial area where you work out how everything functions. Some games think you're a dum-dum and give you a million reminders about how to do everything. And some take kind of a hands-off approach where they figure you've played a game before, you'll kind of experience things as they happen and not really bother with the training wheels. That's kind of where S.T.A.L.K.E.R is. Even when it's given you a tutorial, it doesn't really give a shit if you read it. Right. By helping other characters, you improve their attitude towards you, as well as your general reputation. Better attitude and higher reputation help you when Okay. Thing is, I didn't really have any trouble figuring out how to do anything or what things mean. Sidorovich tells you to go to Wolf to get a gun. So you go talk to Wolf and he gives you a gun. You have a gun now. That's how I know I have a gun. I went there for that purpose. As you said, the inventory system was not complicated, so I don't think you needed any help there. Nobody had to tell me not to walk into anomalies. They look scary, and there's this anxiety-inducing beeping noise when I get near it. I know that beeping means no. As for bleeding and radiation, when a dire-looking symbol pops up and my health starts draining, I think these symbols are universal enough that I understand, oh, I'm bleeding. And then I think, hey, I've got some bandages. The thing, what usually stops the bleeding, at least in real life. Maybe I could use that to stop the bleeding in this video game. Nah, that can't be it. I'm a pro gamer and my intuition has never failed me. I would rather bleed to death and accept that nothing can be done about it. This game is way overrated in my opinion. It felt like a ripoff of Half-Life 2. Wait a minute, what the fuck? Huh. That's interesting. Nothing but waiting. Can't get through to anywhere without the hassle of non-stop waiting. It's a joke. Just stay away from it. Are you like stuck on the main menu or something? I went everywhere just fine. I went all over the dang place. I've been everywhere, dude. Didn't live up to the hype. I appreciate you giving it a fair shake, though. I think nostalgia is clouding reviewers' judgment as to whether or not this game still holds up 13 years later. This was my first time playing it, and I thought it was fantastic. I loved it. Maybe you should go back to detective school, because I got a hunch that you're a dingus. Did not like it. Cheeky Breeky was too strong for me. That's the thing they say in the game. For me, S.T.A.L.K.E.R Shadow of Chernobyl is firstly a really great idea. The idea of S.T.A.L.K.E.R was so good that it carried it into existence. Just the idea of it kept it aloft through missed deadlines and countless setbacks. It's true that this game is not the initial promise of Oblivion Lost, and there is some disappointment that many ideas and ambitions were abandoned or not fully realized. I can feel the sting of missed potential even to this day, but I think it does do a hell of a lot to approach what was already a pretty absurdly ambitious concept. The promise of S.T.A.L.K.E.R was so unlikely to actually happen, and it's crazy that they even got this close. The story could have had more depth, more character, and its pacing is sort of all over the place. The gameplay could be tightened up in countless ways. It's kind of silly that stealth is set up to work, but the enemies don't respond accordingly to it. It's silly that eating is the only remnant of the planned survival mechanics, and it so rarely comes up that I'm reminded that it even exists every time I get hungry. You could make iron sights better, you could add more interesting side content. I'd like to see how cars would have changed things, maybe another faction to deal with. There is so much room to add to this because there are so many holes. I wouldn't even mind a rudimentary crafting and repair mechanic of some sort. I'm sure all of these things have been addressed in mods, by the way, which only goes to show you how captivating a world the zone is. People just want to be in there, and I understand it. It's the most developed, the most realized part of the game, I think. The atmosphere of the zone. I can't get enough of the environments, the weather, the sound, the ambience. It's a desolate, sad place that is rife with danger, and you really feel that. There are countless moments that are going to stay with me, and they owe everything to the dread and unease that is seeping out of every corner of this game. I would recommend S.T.A.L.K.E.R if you don't mind a challenge, some frustration, some jank, some things that are admittedly underdeveloped, missing, broken, and occasionally downright unfair. You're gonna have to be okay with that reality. But I'm telling you that even with all of that, it's still immensely charming. I avoided this game for a long time because I was intimidated by it. It seemed like it would be kind of prohibitively difficult or too esoteric, and I was delighted to find that it was just the right amount of both for me. And now I got a new favorite game, and it's a series. There's going to be a second one eventually. So now I get to experience firsthand an important part of the S.T.A.L.K.E.R fandom, and that is waiting almost a decade for it. Thanks for watching my video. It means a heck of a lot. Sorry this one took a while, but I had a lot I needed to work out in making it. You know, it's an experience. Hopefully you don't mind the wait. I should have some more things coming out much quicker. But thanks again for watching. I appreciate all of you. Hope you're staying safe. Hope you're gaming. Stay gaming. New hashtag. Never mind, it's kind of dumb. And I'm gonna try to get through some patron names here, as if this wasn't already gonna be the longest video I did. Probably. I'm gonna try to go fast. I'm gonna try to get faster and better, which means more mistakes, more mispronunciations. Let's freaking do it. So special thanks to Charles Marr, Ailing Uncle, Gregarious, Matt Bastard, Resurrection, Game Master, Bayard Brown. This deal is getting worse all the time. Nazim Kamalu Ray, Mr. Benjamin, Newstime, Karen Mayville, Dark Raptor 86, Oisto, Alexander Sundin, Octo, Alexander Smith, Joseph Zanoni, Nilanthrope, Dos Days, Sebastian Wappler, Turts, Canum, Castia Morgana, Brandon Kostowick, Ya Boy Nicky G, Ghosty, Pizza Shift, Daphne Pittendridge, Jacob Stewers, Ridley the Savior, Andre Perkins, Necrophiliac, Stuka Bliat, Dylan Hansen, Fabrice, Andrei Kalganov, Sergei Vorontsov, P. Dizzle, Simon Murray, Ophelia Fishwife, A Hanging Chad, Donut Stalker, Spooky, Mandalore Gaming, Astro Shepherd, David Harpstrite, Dan Cullen, Dazed Clockwork, Edward Crawford, Brendan McFadden, Lachlan Hare, Travis Houston, Hannes Jacoby, Big Honk, Jeremy Lott, Tyler Robinson, Honey BB, Startide, Dead Pixel, Simpin Goral, Commissar, Doxapine, Vlastin, Pekrosia, Arshez Knight. I've definitively decided that's how I'm gonna say it. And this one's gonna be Spider 00X, baby. Ooey Ooey, Leland Miliokis, Alas Rat Gunk, Atlantean Goldfish, Lucian Jelly, Sergey Vidovin, Rowdy Peeper, Major Millions, Tyler F, Mr. Boojangles, Evo Zap, Alec Galler, Strahinja Redenkovic, Dan Richardson, Fred Greisen, No Community, Otter Soldier, Flaccid Snake 69, Megan Carmody, DJ Necroman, Meme Queen, Jay Marshall, Joe Face, El Jaguar, Bruibisomem, Ice Hot 1, Sweet Pete in the Back Seat, Declan J. Keane, Marcus Chaney, Totally Not a Mimic, Pizza, Josh Sharf, Ottavio Albanese, Bismarck, Michael King, Noiles, Keith James Jones, Roland, Petrus Montanu, Joyful Beard, Q-Chan, I think you corrected me in the comments of the video, Jean-Philippe Malouin, Rose, Nicholas Nelson, Khalifas, Julius Pucala, Robert Scotland, Steinul, Fazy, Vivitis, Ross Armstrong, Byron Callan, Callum May, Cassiar, Uradrag, Grimbeard and Neril are my two dads. Well, alright, okay, fair enough. Rourke McKenzie, Austin Scott, Keith Pitt, the sixth sick fucker, the sixth sick sheik's sixth sheep's sick. I got it. I got the words. Brianna Maria McKenzie, J Raptor, Lucas Kettner, Nikita Denisov, Mr. Sark, Gavada, Dylan Sorum, Daniel Person, Brendan Naftal, Jojo Evans, Colton Rowe, Dostia, Ignacio de Guglielmi. I'm gonna presume I got that incorrect. David Moreau, Sir Alohomora, Zubertuber, Tomas Pelikan, Eris Alessandrakis, Pedro Costum, Adventure Game Geek, Ghost LPs, Niles Crane 19, Robert, Johan Kavan, Zaraka, Adrian Facci, Christopher White Schneider, Ricky Goss, Pixelfish, Wednesday V, Alex Hanna, Professor Nex, Lucas, Cassiel, Heck, Alex Blackwood, No Bunny, Diggity D7187, The Gaming Beehive, Little B, Drunk Taco, Matthias Waltman, Ricky Rigatoni, James Fitzwater, Wodenborn, Robert McMahon, Hashi Singh, Jared, Viru, AJ Leroy, Brad, Terranfear, Charles Vincent Chevalier Le Berson de Verdun. I feel like that one just keeps slipping out of my grasp, but I'm gonna get it someday. Anthony Daniel, Jonathan Becker, Sam C, Warhopper, Pebble, 13, Kevin Thurber, Jeep Pete, The Super Pickle, Miles Smith, Surprise, The Voyant Claire, Joe Lambo, Gargantua, Joe Reynolds, Melon Man, Level Zero, Sven Grell, Tyler Manning, Ryza, Striders, Tony Gleed, LaFazar, Bones Malones, Nagru, Matt Chester, Ikifu, Michael Beldy, Robust Muffin, Andrew McLaughlin, Eugene Balder, Duke Lordaeron, Zan, Eric Leung, Bucrules, Daniel Newberry, Sweeteasy, Fitzgerald93, Bim Bizzle, Viet Doe, Pentagon Black, Dustsucker, Michael Sapka, Conrad Eastman, Oliver Marshall, Luke Gazaway, Is This Jack's Cake, Furin, Pagan Butler, Korn, Survival Horror 100, Brandon Schock, Sam Fuller, Cloister 56, Yossarian, Allegory, Big Bobo, Ian Kennedy, Lucas Mendel, Stray Dog Freedom, Similar Dude, Wendigo, A Fear Worth Living, Sunderland, Rasmus Karras, Aubrey, Devaeth Faust, Silvano Gonzalez, Ian, Huai Lee, Mr. Roboto, Shannon Clements, John Adams, Nathaniel Dolenchuk, Ian Baranek, Florian Vogel, League of Struggle, Bertie Bertig, Rachel Rose, Vinculus, Avalanche Reviews, Negative Creep, Alex Theodorov, The Iron Front, Alexis Pincinalt, Chris Barb, Sean Lovett, Chris Tallarico, BMAC, Josh Hessler, Haimo Statman, Exalted Platypus, Boyi, Alexander Chaya, Oriole, HL Longboy, Michael Moore, Manu Weidman, Danny D, Tony Brandt, Joshua Stewart, Curano, Chef Toker, QL 2040, Gideon Joubert, Scott Motus, Thisid4, Jack Wind, Cabbage, Frand, Austin Mathis, Vey, Corey Ranson, Peachy Pixel 8, Sir Traston, Tiana Lazik, Day Yang, Schluff, Diesel Dizzle, and Sarah Denman for being a patron. I think that was better. I think that was an improvement. Thank you so much for watching this video and for all your support. You may not know this, but you are keeping somebody alive. How does that make you feel? You mean the world to me. Please don't leave me. I will continue to make some internet videos for you to look at, and everybody will be happy. It'll all work out. It'll all work out. Yeah. I love you.
I am the house hunter, cold in the attic, the flickering hallway light. I am the dark, the cold hand on your chest, a guttural laugh at midnight.